Good morning, everyone. We're just going to wait for a few seconds for everyone to join in, and then we'll start. Good morning, everyone. Now it's 11 a.m. Paris time, 10 a.m. UK time, so let's start. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're really glad to have you on this EthiFinance webinar, which will be focusing on the study we conducted on the ESG performance of small and mid-sized corporates in Europe. I'm very pleased to be joined by Camille Ferron, who is the head of methodology and products within EthiFinance ESG ratings, and Clara Jimenez, who is an expert in methodology and products for our ESG rating agency. In terms of the structure of this webinar, Clara will be presenting you the results of our study for about 30-35 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A session. I really encourage you to share your question in writing within the Q&A session of this webinar, and then we'll be happy to go through these at the end of the presentation. Before I hand over, to Camille and Clara, I just wanted to give you a few words about EthiFinance. So we are European research, credit and advisory group. Basically, we focus on two main things: credit on one side and ESG on the other one. Within the credit world, we are an ESMA-regulated credit rating agency, and we also conduct credit research under the brand Spread Research with a focus on high-yield corporates. On the ESG side, we have two main activities which are very much distinct. On the one hand, we provide advisory to financial institution asset managers for their ESG reporting, sustainable finance consulting, and so on. And on the other side, for the ESG rating agency, that's the three of us represent here, we provide expert opinion on the ESG performance of corporates, be it ESG ratings, solicited, unsolicited, second-party opinions in the context of ESG debt fundraising, and so on. Now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Camille, who is going to very briefly present to you how we conduct ESG rating within EthiFinance, and that would be a smooth introduction to Clara's presentation on the performance that we've seen over the past year.
Thank you very much, Lotta. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to do a short introduction on our rating methodology. So at EthiFinance ESG rating, we cover 2,300 companies listed on stock markets across Europe. Most of them are small and mid caps, which is our historical focus. So our ESG ratings are based on a proprietary rating model. We collect more than 120 data points on 4 pillars, which you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. So environment, the environmental pillar, with things on energy management, water management, biodiversity, carbon, etc. The governance pillar, also quite straightforward, with the composition and operation of governance bodies, business ethics, or the management of ESG issues. And the particularity of EthiFinance is that the S pillar is split into 2. So we have our social pillar, which is focused on employees, working conditions, dialogue with employees, training and skill development, equal opportunities, and health and safety at work. And we have another part of the social pillar, which is the external stakeholders pillar, which is more focused on clients, suppliers, and the civil society. So we collect, as I said, more than 100 data points, which are then aggregated into scores. So we have a score for each of our topics and each of our ESG and external stakeholders pillar. These scores are weighted according to the company's macro sector. So currently we have 3 macro sectors, industrials, distribution, and services. Additionally, there is another step, which is a malus linked to ESG controversies. So if a company is facing a very severe controversies, they lose points in their final rating. So the final score is out of 100. And also takes into account controversy. So just a word on the ESG rating process. We have, so first the analysts collect data from publicly available documents, so annual reports, companies' websites, sustainability reports, and so on. Then we have a first step of data quality control. And then we have a very important step, which is our company dialogue phase, where so our platform is open to the rated companies, and they can fill in additional data, check that the data entered is correct, and input additional information if they want to. We always do a feedback to the companies that participate to our dialogue phase to explain to them what data we can take into account and what data we cannot, because it does not correspond to our methodology, for instance. So it's a really human step, I would say. Then we have other quality steps especially to spot and correct outliers. With statistical tests and things like that. We have a controversy review and the publication of scores. One very important element that I also would like to add is that our rating process is really adapted to small and mid caps, especially thanks to this dialogue phase that I talked about. And also our scoring formulas depend on the size of the company being rated, which means that for companies that have less than 500 employees, some formulas are adapted. So some indicators are only rated as bonuses, or for some others, it's easier for smaller companies to achieve the higher score than for large companies. So with that approach, we wanted to reduce the bias, the size bias that we observe in many ESG ratings, where large caps have overall better average scores than mid caps. So on this word, I'm going to leave the floor to Clara, who is the main writer of the study that we conducted on the data of our 2023 rating cycle. Clara, you're muted, sorry. I muted you.
Just 1 second. No, Clara, you're still on mute. Apologies, we have a slight technical issue. Just give us 1 minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good. Thanks, Clara. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so now you hear me well, right?
Correct, can hear you.
Okay, so sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Now we're going to proceed to present the results of this 2024 Sustainability Performance Analysis. And in order to do so, I want to start by giving some context on the scope and the purpose of this study that was an analysis of the result of the 2023 ESG ratings for a group of companies in EthiFinance coverage. Especially, we analyzed the scores obtained by 2053 European listed companies that internally we classified as small and medium-sized enterprise for having a market capitalization up to 10 million euros by the end of 2023. This evaluation campaign was based on the information presented by companies in fiscal year 2022. And the purpose was to present an overview of the sustainability performance of these small and mid-caps European companies, providing some comparison and trends between different regions inside Europe and economic sectors. So this will be the distribution of regions and sectors under our study. We also compared analyzed the evolution, the progression of these scores since 2021. So during this presentation, we're going to give an overview of the sustainability performance at European level, and we're also going to get some insights into the performance of the Nordic region, which will be Denmark, Finland, Switzerland, and Norway, and the UK and Ireland as well. So before presenting the result of the studies, this will be the main takeaways of the report. First of all, we've seen a constant improvement of the ESG sustainability, of the ESG performance, of these small and mid-sized companies in Europe. So meaning that the average score have been improving since 2021. And this is a very positive message because we see that not only bigger companies that are under regulatory requirements for ESG reporting are the ones that have been improving their sustainability performance, but also smaller companies are clearly being influenced by these regulatory pressures and have been working towards their transparency and sustainability goals. Secondly, we also saw that companies inside the European Union tend to score higher than companies in other European countries. This is not a surprise because obviously the European Union emphasis and regulatory pressure on sustainability aspect influence the performance of companies. But what is more interesting is that specifically countries in the south of Europe are also obtaining higher scores than countries in the northern region. Another main observation is that companies that engage during the rating process and actively participate obtain higher scores than those that didn't participate and didn't respond to our questionnaire. And this is relevant because this can help us at least partly explain the trends that we saw on the results of some companies and some regions. And finally, the last observation regarding corporate controversies related to ESG aspect is that in 2023, companies in the south of Europe were the most involved in controversies, and most of these controversies were related to social aspects. So this will be the main takeaways from the study. Generally speaking, regarding the Nordic and the UK and Ireland, Nordic countries are still slightly below the European average, but they are making good progress. In fact, they are progressing at the same pace, at the same rate as the rest of Europe, at the European average level. And the UK and Ireland on the other side, they are outperforming in governance aspect. However, they are also a bit below average on the rest of the ESG pillars. And with this, now we can start to see the result of the first part of the study that focuses on the analysis of the overall sustainability performance. This will be the distribution of general scores in 2023. And what tell us is that the majority of the companies demonstrated moderate sustainability performance, which is that 60% of companies scored between 30 points and 60 points out of 100. And the average score in 2023 was 47 points. So it's still slightly below half of the punctuation. On the other side, we have 90% of companies scoring above 70 points, which can be considered a high sustainability performance. And on the other side, we have 14% of companies scoring below 30 points. So basically, we still have more companies with low sustainability performance than those that have a high sustainability performance. But the positive message is what I said before, that this average score have been improving year after year. So there's a positive progression in the average scores. Regarding the performance of Nordic countries, they are making good progress, as I said. Finland will be the country that is outperforming here. We have 73 companies in the Finland country, and they are the one that are obtaining year after year the highest average score. Sorry. Denmark and Sweden, they present very similar trends. Every year, they are slightly below the European average, but they are progressing at a good pace, at the same rate as the rest of Europe. And even though Sweden is the most representative country, and it has much more companies than Denmark, the trends are really similar. So we assume that we're talking here about similar companies and similar industry probably. Norway, on the other side, is one of the countries, that demonstrated the highest improvement since 2021, not only compared to other Nordic countries, but with the rest of Europe. So they're doing also great in this science. Regarding the UK and Ireland, we have to say here that Irish companies are the ones that are outperforming. We only have 23 Irish companies versus more than 400 UK companies, but they're demonstrating higher sustainability performance every year. In fact, they're in line with the European Union average, which can make sense because they're part of the European Union, but they are also progressing at a higher rate than the UK. So we really hope to see some changes here for the UK companies, because there's still a lot of opportunity for improvement. As for the rest of the region, this will be the ranking of average score in 2023 by country. And as I said before, we can clearly see how southern countries are at the top of the ranking. We have Portugal, France, Spain, Italy as well in the top 5, while at the bottom we can see Sweden, Germany, Switzerland. And why is this happening? Well, obviously, there are a lot of factors here, but one thing that we have to take into account is that our methodology not only focuses on reflecting, demonstrating the sustainability performance of companies per se, which it obviously does, but is also very relevant, is also key, the quality of the reporting. And in this sense, it's very important that companies participate and engage during the rating process, respond to our dialogue, and provide us with more information to support their evaluation. And in this sense, we have seen, maybe due to cultural reasons or any other that northern countries are less willing to participate, to respond to our dialogue. So we basically rate them based on public information. And as we are talking here about the small and mid-sized companies, we assume that these companies haven't been under very strong regulatory requirements for ESG reporting and transparency, and that's probably affecting their position on the ranking. And to better understand this, it's important to analyze the participation rate in the rating process of companies by country in 2023. And we can clearly see how companies and countries in the European Union present a much higher participation rate than those outside the European Union. And specifically, we have southern countries with the highest participation rate. The very high participation rate in France is due to the longest history of French companies under our coverage. We have been rating French companies for many years now, while we opened to other countries in 2022, I think. So it's natural to see this difference. But it's very relevant because what we saw is that companies that responded to our dialogue obtained, on average, 15 points more than those that didn't participate, which is a very significant difference. But it's a good thing it's a good thing in our opinion that this is reflected on the final scores, because participating in the dialogue, participating in the rating process demonstrate interest on the company side to prove their commitment with sustainability and with transparency, which is part of what our ESG ratings wants to assess. Regarding Nordics and UK and Ireland, we can see how they present the lowest participation rate, but the positive message here will be that there's progress here. They have been improving their participation rate, both regions, especially in 2023. And of course, there are differences between countries. Finland, again, will be outperforming here, with being one of the countries with the highest participation rate, specifically they present a participation rate of 23% in 2023. Norway, on the other side, will be the country that is pushing down the average here with a participation rate of 60% in 2023. And regarding the UK and Ireland, we have to say that this time, this 90% participation rate is due to the efforts of UK companies, because Irish companies are not participating yet in our rating dialogue. Out of the 23 companies that we assessed this year, only one responded to our questionnaire, for instance. So also room for improvement here for Irish companies. And with that, we can get into the second part of the evaluation, which focuses on the analysis of the scores by ESG pillar. Here is the progression of the score in every pillar: governance, social, environmental, and external stakeholders. And what we can see is that there's been a constant improvement of average score, not only in the overall level, but also for each of the ESG pillar. Specifically, the environmental pillar is the one that have shown the greatest improvement since 2021, again, reflecting the emphasis of the European Union and the companies across Europe in general in climate aspect and environmental aspects. However, the governance pillar is the strongest pillar year after year, and the social pillar will be the weakest every year as well. We also expect to see some improvements here, as we know for a fact that companies and regulatory bodies are also putting a lot of emphasis lately on social aspects as well. Regarding the Nordic and UK and Ireland performance, this is not a progression of the scores, but the average score per pillar in 2023 for the Nordic, UK, and Ireland compared to the European Union and Europe in general. So starting with the governance pillar, here we see that how the UK and Ireland outperform. They are scoring below average, below European Union and European average. Especially, they are very strong in the operation of governance bodies. We know for a fact that specifically, especially the UK, they have very strong regulatory requirements regarding these matters. So that's probably influencing and impacting their performance of companies here. Nordic, they're also doing good in governance aspect. They're slightly below average, but they're almost there. And they are even scoring above average in the composition of governance bodies. The social pillar, consistent with the trend of Europe, the European trend, is also the weakest pillar for both regions. Both regions are specifically weak in the aspect related to employees' skill development for some reason, and UK and Ireland are also scoring significantly below average on health and safety issues. However, in environmental pillar, both regions are strong, and especially the UK and Ireland, they are really strong in GHG emission management, energy management, water management as well. They are all aspects where they are scoring above average. The Nordic, however, still scoring below average in every environmental aspect. And in the external stakeholder pillar, both regions outperformed in some specific topics. UK and Ireland, they are doing great and they are very strong in cybersecurity matters. And the Nordic countries are scoring above average in relationship with suppliers. Finally, the last part of this study focuses on the evaluation of the ESG controversies, so the exposure of companies to ESG controversies. These controversies are incidents related to sustainability aspect that involve companies under our coverage and that affect their operations, their reputation, their credibility. We classify these controversies based on their severity level, and we consider relevant controversies from 3 points of severity, 3, 4, 5. So regarding the involvement rate per country in 2023 to ESG controversies, we see how southern countries are the one that were the most involved in controversies in 2023, which is interesting because they were the countries, the region that obtained the highest average score on the sustainability performance. So we assume here that may be a trend where companies that know that are more exposed to controversies or under public pressure for some reason, they're really working to demonstrate transparency and a good sustainability reporting. However, regarding the average controversy severity score by region, there are not significant differences between region. Every region score below 3 points, so that's a good thing. And regarding the specific topics of these controversies for the Nordic region in Nordic companies, in 2023, half of controversies were related to governance aspect. Specifically, anti-competitive practices was the most recurrent topic. Most of them involve companies in the food sector. So basically, we're talking here about some cartels involving companies in the seafood and salmon industry. However, the majority of controversies that were relevant, that has a severity level from 3 and above, were related to social aspect. Most of them were related to deceptive marketing or advertising practices. We have product safety issues as well, and human rights violations. And finally, regarding the environmental related controversies, we have 80% of total controversies. All of them, again, involving the food sector companies. And these controversies were related basically to biodiversity damage and water pollution as well. And in the UK and Ireland, most controversies were related to social aspect, more than 60%. Again, the most recurring topics were deceptive marketing or advertising practices, product safety issues as well, and also working conditions was a really recurring topic here. 26% of controversies were related to governance aspect, and the most recurring topics were, again, anti-competitive practices and money laundering. And finally, environmental controversies were 10%, 11% of overall controversies, and the most significant ones were related to water pollution again, and also air pollution. So this will be the main finding of the study of the publication. Before concluding, we want also to share the company ranking in 2023 of this sustainability performance. So these were the top 10 performers in 2023. It's interesting to see how half of these companies are small companies based on market capitalizations, which means that they have a market capitalization up to 500 million euros in 2023. Most of these companies, if you can see, that are from the real estate sector, which is also very interesting. This sector, it was very, very strong on environmental aspect. In fact, all of these companies, the 10 companies, obtained their highest score in the environmental pillar, which is very interesting because overall, the strongest pillar was the governance pillar. So again, we can assume that companies that may be more exposure to environmental aspects are really working towards their ESG reporting and transparency, maybe. So this may be it. I hope you find it interesting. And now with Kemi, if you have any question, we're more than happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much, Clara. We actually already have a few questions coming in, so please don't hesitate to share a few more. Maybe I'll start with you, Kemi. The first question is on how we select the companies. Do they approach us or do we approach them?
Thank you for this question. So in fact, in this study, it focuses on the non-solicited rating universe of EthiFinance. So it's a universe that we are building ourselves. So we are not paid by the companies and they are not coming to us for a rating in this context. So how do we select them? So we are focusing on listed equity, so listed companies on European stock markets. And we select all the companies which are in the main indices of each developed country. And more generally, we cover all companies that have a market cap above 150 million euros a free float capitalization of at least 75 million euros. So that's how they are selected. We also, so in the agency, we also offer what we call solicited ratings, so ratings for companies that do not fall into our universe. So it's especially done for pre-IPO ratings or also specific ratings such as only on carbon or only on the EU taxonomy. So it's also a range of products that we offer to companies.
Great, thanks, Kemi. And actually a very following your point on the listed versus private companies, could you please give us a little bit more of insight on how you observe the companies taking more steps to improve their reporting or data based on the dialogue that you conduct with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't have statistical data on that, but we have feedback from the companies that we assess, especially in France, which is our historical market, and where we have 2/3 of the small and mid-cap companies that are answering our dialogue phase. And actually, they are really using our questionnaire to improve their reporting. We have sometimes some heads of CSR or persons in charge of sustainability who are telling us, okay, I'm glad to see that you have added this indicator or this question to your questionnaire, because that is going to help me put pressure on my management to have more means to dig this ESG issue. So yes, I think it really has an impact on what topics the companies are focusing on.
Great, thank you. And about the collection of the data, could you please give us a bit more insight on how it's collected? Is it manually or using AI technologies?
So for now, it's collected manually. So we have a team. So in fact, part of the data collection is subcontracted. We have a partner in India. They are working for us. So currently, we are also studying, of course, AI technologies. So that's something that I think, if we follow the sense of history, we're going to implement in the coming years. But to date, the tests we've conducted show that AI is not thorough enough, or not the result rate of the correct data collected was not that great for now compared to the cost of implementation. So it's mainly manual. Then we have, of course, some automatic calculations that are done. We are trying to automatize the process as much as possible, but
there is always that human hand behind every collection. Great. Interesting question on the controversies. I know it raised already a good amount of questions on the other webinars we conducted. How is the search of controversies done? Is it based on publicly available information or website searches? And how much can it influence the overall score of a company?
Yeah, very interesting question. So regarding controversies, we have a partnership with a company, a French company that is called Sésame. So they are an AI company, and they do data scraping on the web on 15,000 sources. And in fact, so their algorithm scraps articles, and they pre-qualify the articles with a severity score based on the amount of negative terms that are in the article. They also look if it's related to ESG issues or not. And they also look, in fact, at the amount of articles that were published on a given company on a specific day compared to what is usually published on the company. So if there is a search, like a peak on a certain day, the algorithm considers that there is a possibility of controversy. So we have this pre-filter. And then we have here again a human analysis of each article. So the analysts have to do a second filter to confirm that indeed it's a controversy or not. And then they analyze the controversy based on its impact on the company itself, be it operational, financial, or in terms of reputation. The impact on the stakeholders that are impacted in terms of scope of the impact, so how many people were impacted, for instance, by the controversy, and in terms of severity of the impact, so is it reversible in the short term, the medium term, in the long term, or not at all? And finally, we also look at what we call the responsibility of the company, which is So are there legal proceedings? Has the company been condemned by courts? And also, is the controversy occurring in like the supply chain, in a very tiny subsidiary very far away? Or is the executive management or the board directly involved? So that's also allowing us to compute that severity score. We have also, in terms of governance, a controversy committee at EthiFinance that has to analyze all the most severe cases. So we have a rating out of 5 for controversies from 1 to 5. And so the 4 and 5 controversies are the most severe. And so this committee has to validate every company that is 4 or 5 and also decides over time when we can lower the severity score based on the date of the facts, based on the response of the company, if they have put in place corrective measures or not, etc. And so finally, how does it impact the score? So we have a system of malus, so the companies can lose up to 20 points out of 100 if they are facing a very severe controversy, so of 5 out of 5. And if it's a 4, it's 15 points, and then that's decreasing.
Great, thank you. Coming back to EthiFinance, actually, what is your business model? And if companies are not paying to be analyzed, who is paying for it?
So we are paid by investors, asset managers, that have in fact a subscription contract to our database. And they are buying either our data or our scores. We also have other products such as so our controversy research, our in-depth controversy research. We have data on the EU taxonomy, on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, also on business activity screening. If some asset managers want to exclude from their investments companies with activities in certain sectors, such as tobacco or fossil fuels or things like that.
So that's indeed on the one hand, all the unsolicited rating side of the business. And as you rightly said at the very beginning, we also have corporates that don't fall into the criteria of our universe of coverage that come to us to solicit an ESG rating. And the benefits of having that large coverage is that obviously they can have a benchmark towards corporates of the same sector, the same size, and so on. So that's actually really providing much more insight than just an overall score on 100. They can really compare themselves. Clara, a quick question for you on the results of the study. So this study focuses really on small and mid-sized corporates. Do you see any difference in terms of the ESG performance depending on the size of the company?
Well, we didn't include this we didn't show this during the presentation because the study was focused on small and mid-sized companies, as you said. But we thought it will be interesting to analyze as well the results of bigger companies. So we also assessed the result of companies with a market capitalization about 10 million euros. And what we saw is that year after year, the average score of these bigger companies is obviously highest than the one of the smallest companies. But even though they are scoring better year after year, what we saw is that the progression, the improvement of this score year after year doesn't really, the side of the company doesn't really influence on the progression. So small and mid-sized companies are improving their average score at the same pace as bigger companies, which is kind of interesting as well.
Absolutely. And in terms of the sector breakdown, you did a focus on the UK and the Nordics. Are there specific sectors that stand out in terms of ESG performance within those two geographic areas?
So what we saw from a sectorial perspective is a trend between actually across all Europe and almost every specific region. There is that the sectors that obtain the highest scores are in fact sectors with very strong environmental impacts. So for instance, in the UK, the ranking will be the material sector in the first place, then we have automotive and construction. At European level, overall, we have automotive, materials, and then energy sector. So as we know, these are sectors that are very intensive in resource consumption and also in GHG emissions, for instance. So it's kind of what I was saying before during the presentation. We assume that maybe these sectors that are under regulatory pressure and public pressure as well for being very impactful on the environment have been really working to demonstrate a good sustainability performance, probably. In the Nordic countries, again, we have the material sectors leading the ranking, but there are some difference because then we also have consumer goods and real estate in the top three. And on the other side, at the bottom of the ranking, we always find sectors that are very focused on services. Healthcare for both the UK and Nordics. Then in the UK, we also have the financial sectors as one of the weakest. And in the Nordic country, we have leisure and leisure and healthcare, as I said.
Great, thank you very much. Maybe last question on my side. If in the audience you have any further questions, please do share them in the Q&A section. You were mentioning, Clara, that there is a focus on the environmental pillar, which continues to be the lower in score at the European level. Are there any specific aspects within that environmental pillar that for you represent the greatest opportunities for improvement for companies?
Yes, in fact, it is. What we see is that in the environmental pillar, the biodiversity aspect are one of the topics. Not one of the topics. Actually, it's the topic with the lowest average score in 2023. The average score at European level was, I think, 18 points, which is quite low. And it's kind of surprising because, as we know, many companies and regulatory bodies are putting a lot of emphasis on biodiversity aspects. So we really expect to see some changes here on this topic. On the other side, for example, we have the GHG emissions and energy management and GHG emission management, which is the strongest topic overall, not only on the environmental pillar, but compared to any other ESG topic. And we also consider in the environmental pillar things as water management, waste management, environmental policies. And these are topics that are kind of on the middle of the average score compared to other topics, but are the ones that have shown the strongest progression. So the environmental pillar is one of the pillars that is improving the most.
Great. Thank you very much, Clara. We had a last question from the audience, which is about the coverage. How about private SMEs, and is there a potential to include them in the future? So indeed, for private SMEs, there is that option of to solicitate an ESG rating, and we're looking to have an option to have those solicited rating included as well in the coverage for investors to actually have access as well to that specific private SME rates. I'll hand over to you, Camille, but the difference is obviously on the data availability.
Sure, but we have to actually in EthiFinance, so as Lotta mentioned at the beginning, on the ESG side, we have the agency, and we have another team, which is advisory and solution. And they have actually a team that's called One Track, and they offer a solution for private SMEs to investors. But it's much more ad hoc and very custom compared to what we offer. So in fact, depending on the type of assets, because they cover all private assets, like it can be infrastructure, real estate, private SMEs, venture capital, anything. So their questionnaire is really customized based on the needs and the preferences of their clients. But what we also have for some clients who are subscribing to our data sets and also have private assets and want to be able to compare is that the private asset team can use our methodology to cover their private assets portfolio. So that's also something that we do. And so in this team, one track, they are really focused on the dialogue with companies. They have a specific SaaS platform for companies to answer. So yeah, they are really used to find these data, be it a pre-investment or during the monitoring phase, that is not publicly available.
Great. I think we've gone through the various questions that we had from the audience. Thank you everyone for joining. We're very pleased to have been able to present you these results. We'll share with you obviously the slides, and you also have access to a replay session of this webinar. Thank you very much, Clara and Camille. It was a very insightful presentation, I thought, and thank you all for your great questions. We wish you a very nice rest of the day, and we're looking forward to tell you more about EthiFinance in the future. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.